Precisa ferir a pressão, medir a glicemia ou tomar uma vacina? Na Drogasil tem exames, testes e calendário vacinal completo. E o que é melhor, tem sempre uma Drogasil aí perto de você. É fácil, prático e rápido. Dá para ir entre uma música e outra. Procure nossos farmacêuticos. Quanto mais você conhece o que a gente faz na Drogasil, mais você se cuida.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Dr. Psych Mom Show. Today, I'm going to talk about concern trolling, which is something that you may not know the term for, but you've likely experienced or possibly done yourself. Before we get to that and how pernicious it can be and how passive-aggressive it is, I want to tell you to subscribe. My most recent episode is on female arousal and how arousal is a different way to think about spontaneous desire that can clear up some confusion that males may have when trying to discriminate between spontaneous and responsive desire in women, because men don't really have the same types of desire as at least as monogamous women, as I have tried to make very clear. So if you subscribe, you get that one and about 71 other episodes. So that should be what you do now. And you probably want to subscribe to my Facebook group. So that is a subscriber-only, paid $4.99 a month Facebook group where I get a lot of my podcast ideas, and I engage in that group a lot. I make people videos or answer podcasts for them if they have questions. So that's probably something that you would like if you've listened to this many of my podcasts. And no, you do not get that if you subscribe on Anchor to my. You don't get the podcast if you subscribe to Facebook. You don't get the Facebook if you subscribe to podcasts. Those are two different things. Okay, so anyway, what's concern trolling? Well, concern trolling is when somebody pretends that they care about you, but in reality, they're just being passive aggressive. So what would be an example? Like if you're a young mother and your mother-in-law is like, oh, honey, like you seem to like really be confused about like sleep in kids. So, I'm just worried that maybe like you don't know that kids need a bedtime, And you're like, shut up. Like, of course I know, I know. You're just being nasty because you're trying to tell me that my kid should have a different bedtime. Another one that I see all the time is when a man points out, or a woman, I see it actually more women do this than men. Men are too scared to do this. Most of the time, that a woman will be like, I'm just really worried about my husband's health. Like in terms of him being overweight. So, I always say to him, like, honey, I think you would feel so much better if you dropped 40 pounds. I'm like, what? Like, no, okay, yeah, but like, that's not why you're bringing it up. He does probably, if I interrogate you, like 1 million other dangerous things that are likelier to kill him that you don't care as much about because you want him to look different. Like, that's a you thing. You're just not being honest about it. Like, have you had him go for like a colonoscopy after hitting age 45? Do you have him go get his prostate exam? Do you have him put on sunscreen every second? I mean, if you truly are like a complete control freak in terms of every aspect of his health and well-being, then cool, you win. But most women are not. But then the ones that bother them in particular, they'll mention. Same for men, right? So how does a man do concern trolling? Like, oh, like I read this article, it says that people who have more sex are happier. Yeah, you would be happier. And she ain't gonna be happier, like, probably, unless she's the one who decides that she wants to do it. So concern trolling is, and the reason that I was gonna, it's interesting, I was gonna do it anyway, but it's so funny because I got this comment on my Facebook where I posted this meme where it was like two kittens and one of them had like really, the eyes were drawn on very, how some cats look like they're wearing eyeliner. And then one was like a cat with its eyes half open. And so I said like something like, LOL, this is me or something. And then somebody's like, oh, like if you're worried about like how you look, like you're right, like you could use a makeup consult and that would just let your beauty shine even more. It's like, shut up. And I did a funny video with my gecko about it. If you want to follow me on TikTok, you could see my response video to that concern trolling. Like, the only appropriate thing to say in that situation is LOL, or like what every other woman said, which was, haha, me too. Like, if you're like, oh my God, I'm so concerned about your potentially not being as attractive as you could be, like, give me a break, girl. You know, like, that is not real. That's concern trolling. So why do people do concern trolling? Well, it's really linked to this idea of adding value that I brought up a lot in the Devil's Advocate post and podcast. So there's some people who have low self-esteem, and the way that they engage in the world is they try to add value to other people, and or they have like an identity based on being nice, in quotes. So they won't let themselves say anything honest that isn't nice. They have to frame it in this, quote, nice way. So the mother-in-law in that situation has this idea of herself as a very helpful woman who is really helping her daughter-in-law figure out parenting. Right? When in reality, she's just being really undermining and passive aggressive, but she has a self-conception, as did likely the woman that commented for me, of being very helpful and nice. And like, people like this are always more concerned about others than they are about themselves. You know, it's very, very convenient to look outward and judge others than to look inward. And so, like, for example, like the woman with her husband's weight, like, she's not like, hell, am I a perfect partner? Fuck no. Like, look at all this shit I do. Number one of which is I'm passive aggressive, you know, but like, do I look like fucking awesome? You know, like, is anybody like, do I get stopped on the street by talent scouts who want like a MILF model? No. So calm down, you know, but like it's a lot more convenient to like look at the other person. And it goes along with this self-conception of being, quote, nice, if you frame it in this way that instead of just being directly aggressive is passive aggressive, because people seem to like passive aggressive better if they've been raised to be polite. But in reality, it's all about you. It doesn't ever help the other person. So if you're thinking, well, gee, like how would that woman say it to her husband while also being nice? Well, there's no way. I mean, like, you can say if you are genuinely, first of all, like, I mean, we could take this so many ways. Let's pretend I'm working with you in real counseling, right? So then we can go as deep as possible, just for like 5 minutes. So first of all, are you being the spouse that you want to be? Full stop. Like, is this like, are you being like overall kind, loving? Like, nobody's going to say yes, because at the time where like, you know, it matters to you this much, and or your husband is so depressed that he has put on 50 pounds, the marriage is not going well, right? So first of all, like, look inward and work on everything that you could work on before you turn around and criticize somebody else. Second of all, are you being loving and supportive in other regards? Are you just like telling your husband like, hey, why don't you go like lose some weight, go to the gym? But like the thing the guy's really been saying all these years is like, I want more affection, and you've just been shoving that one under the rug. You know, maybe listen to the stuff that actually might make him happier that he talks about, you know? Also, like, why not just be honest and then risk being thought of as a bitch, right? At least you're being honest, and so you aren't going to make the other person feel gross because you're like vomiting passive aggression on them or concern trolling. So say, I'm not as attracted to you when you're overweight. I mean, just put it out there. Like, if that is your truth, give the person the full information. And what that does is two things. A, you're no longer being passive aggressive. There's no crazy making. So your husband isn't trying to like figure out what you mean. Are you really worried about the health? What's going on? And your husband may decide he doesn't want to be with you. I mean, he may be like, well, that's a shallow thing to say. I would be fine if she's had gained 50 pounds myself. I think I would. I was fine when she looked like crap when she was pregnant. I was fine when she looked like crap when she went through menopause, whatever. Maybe this isn't the person I thought she was. And that would be totally fine. And this, of course, works in the gender inverse as well. And I see it with a lot of guys. They don't want to bring up to their wife, for example, that they want the wife to act more slutty. I use this word just descriptively. I'm not slut shaming. My God, if anybody could be less of a slut shamer, but they want the woman to be dressed more, I honestly don't know a synonym, slutty in bed. But they don't want to be the guy who says that, because they also want to be Mr. Chivalry, Mr. Good guy. So then they say stuff like, oh, wouldn't it be fun if you looked at maybe we should look at different kind of nightgowns together. So the woman says, oh, that's cute. I'll look up this little nightgown with hearts on it that makes her look 12, and the husband doesn't like that, but he doesn't want to really own what he means. He doesn't want to say, no, I really want you to look pretty much like a prostitute in this outfit. That's my preference, and I would really like you to do it. Because then he's scared that she's no longer going to think of him as a nice guy. But if you don't take that risk to own your shit, then you just come off kind of smarmy and unclear and passive aggressive and weird, So none of those are attractive traits. So the point is, the opposite of concern trolling is to just own what you think. So for example, on the comment, the woman could have been like, I think you look ugly, and then all these people would have been like, you're being so mean, fuck you, I got a lot of followers now, and they would have said that, and then this person could be like, either fuck y'all back and whatever, or she might have been like, I guess that isn't the sort of thing that one wants to say if one wants to, remain part of a community, but if you kind of slide in the back door, you're telling yourself in some way that you are not saying the undermining thing that you're really saying. And so concern trolling is kind of insidious because it's really a form of gaslighting. And I'm not saying that the person who's concern trolling is doing it on purpose. They're not. They genuinely think they're adding value, and 100% they were raised by somebody passive aggressive who did the same thing. Because I really want to drive this home. I feel like at this stage of listening to my podcast, you just need to know 100% of the time, if somebody does some fucked up shit, they were raised by someone who did the same thing. I mean, it's so obvious to me, whatever it is in your job that is so obvious that clients never understand. Let's say you're a doctor, right? And you come in and the client says to you, well, the thing is I don't really like to exercise, and you're thinking, exercise would transform your life. It would transform your health. It would do so much, that beyond anything that I could prescribe. Why can't you just listen to me? And of course that would be a new doctor that would think that. Most older doctors are in same situation as older people in any profession. They're like, these fuckers aren't going to listen to me, so I better help them the best that I can, right? But the point is, so let's say that you're a doctor, that feeling of, oh my God, I know this is true 100%. No matter what you think, I know that this would be good for you. That is how I feel when people are like, nah, I don't think it has anything to do with my upbringing. Trust me, if you respect me after all these podcasts, it does. It does. It does have to do with your upbringing. And any way that you act as an automatic default has to do with something that you saw. Or sometimes it's 180 degrees opposite of what you saw. So the concern troll, for example, could have been raised by somebody extremely aggressive and outright insulting. And so they still have that impulse to insult, but they figure it out a different way to do it so they can convince themselves they're not really insulting. So but 100% when there are things that make you interpersonally ineffective, or for that matter, interpersonally effective, and they're automatic ways that you respond in the world, they 100%, I promise you, come from ways that you were trained to act. How not? I mean, where else would you have learned them from? It doesn't make any sense. If you adopted a dog from the shelter and the dog knew how to shake hands as a trick, what are you going to think nobody trained that dog to shake hands? What are you, crazy? I mean, you think that dog just saw you and said, that person needs a handshake. I'm really going to make this new owner's day by all of a sudden shaking hands. No, they were trained to shake hands. This is what I tell people all the time, by the way, with discussions about prior sex and sexual partners. And people will be like, well, I don't really know what my wife did before me. I'm like, well, what about what she did with you at the beginning? Because that's what she did before you. Unless she did literally nothing and it was so awkward and weird because it was extraordinarily obvious that she had never had sex before, which can be very obvious. If she did anything, if she did any special things, if she had any way of default engaging, she did it with the prior partner. No shit. And so if you can be an adult and realize that, then guess what? You can also learn if there's things she liked in the previous relationship, sexual relationship that you didn't do. So if you can open yourself up to the idea that people learn things, literally, people learn things, then it like expands your horizons beyond the beyond. You could be like, oh my God, so-and-so does this? That must have been how they were raised. So-and-so does that? That must have been what they saw in their marriage. My wife acts like this? Well, shit, must have been in her upbringing and then amplified by the relationship she was in prior to me. Huh. And non-defensively. Oh my God, organisms learn. So anyway, back to concern trolling. If you do this, stop. Try to be very honest and take the good with the bad. Own it. If you have some shit to say, like the mother-in-law, if she was like, I believe you're wrong about bedtime, then her son might come in, who should have honestly been coming in anyway, but he might come in and be like, stop that. That's mean. Don't tell us we're wrong about parenting. Stop telling us we're wrong about bedtime. But she doesn't want to get that reprimand, so instead she kind of snakes around the back door in some way that the daughter-in-law feels even worse, and that then the son is kind of confused. Is mom trying to be nasty? Is she not? Is she trying to be critical? Is she not? Then the couple gets into a fight about it where she's like, your mother's so passive-aggressive, and he's like, I don't know. Maybe she is genuinely concerned about something, confused about bedtime and whether you know what it is or whatever. I've heard all these kind of conversations before in couples work. So anyway, hope this was useful about the idea of concern trolling and similarly adding value, which didn't get as much play during this episode, but you could go back to the devil's advocate one. And if your partner does this, then you might want to even mention it. You might want to be like, when you express concern to me like that, it doesn't really sound genuine, so I don't really feel close to you. Is there a more direct way that you could tell me what you're thinking? While risking that I may not like it. Because right now I feel like you're trying to manipulate and handle me, and I don't like it. Because the concern that you're expressing, it doesn't really sound genuine. That may be why I have never really responded well. So when you say, wouldn't I like to go through, I like Marie Kondo so much, wouldn't I want to go through and purge my underwear drawer? Because I would love to purge, because I like to clean, something tells me that somehow you want me to buy different underwear to put in there instead. But you're not telling me directly, so all I end up thinking is, why is this fucker so obsessed with Marie Kondo and whether I would like it when he has never expressed any other, even vague interest in a interior design phenomenon that I would enjoy, right? And so if people could relate to each other much more directly, it would really limit the amount of couples that I would have to see. And I love to see couples. Come on and see me. I work in pretty much all the states. But the point being, you don't want to, if you don't have to, spend the time and money on me, right? So try to act less like an indirect jerk. This could be a good place to end. It's a lot to focus on and to think about and to introspect about, or just pull up the next podcast. But if you want my best advice, it's to sit and think for like a second or maybe take a couple notes during these podcasts. Thus, you're really getting the full effect. And it's like, can be somewhat of a vague approximation of what therapy might be like. Could either get you rolling, ready to reach out for a therapist, or hey, in certain situations, it could replace it. Who knows? All right, I'll talk to y'all soon. Bye-bye.